Everybody, welcome back to the Metal Mill 52 workshop. My name is Bill. This is my shop. We're building an LBSC Tich locomotive. That's what the book looks like. This is what the project looks like. In this week's episode, we're going to cover machining this actual smoke box itself to mate to the boiler, and then doing a little machining on the saddle so we can bolt it together. We drilled the holes in here, and then also I fashioned some clamps to clamp the backside of the boiler to the frame. So I hope this is an interesting episode for everybody. Again, appreciate you being part of the journey. Please ask any questions. Give me a thumbs up. If you don't have any questions, please pass the word. I am trying to grow the channel. So thanks everybody. Have a great week. Before I can fit the smoke box to the boiler, I need to remove a small amount of material, 1/4 inch deep. So what I've done is I used a Sharpie and marked out a 1/4 inch distance using that and the caliper. And also I have a ring that fits inside. It's a perfect fit, nice tight fit. And just to protect the copper, I also cut a couple of discs of wood which fit in there and will provide some support for when I put it on the lathe. So I'll show you that, and I'll get it together and put it on the lathe in a second. Show you the process. Okay, here's the smoke box all set up. I used a little shim to carefully set the distance on the little 1 thou brass shim, and I also used some of that shim stock here to protect the copper, and I was gentle as I fastened it down. So really don't need to remove much. I'm just going to do a couple thou at a time very carefully, and then I've got the boiler standing by next door, right, next by my side here. So I'm going to stop in between each pass and check the boiler and just take off enough so it fits. Okay, this is the look after the first pass, and this is what I mean by test fitting. Just sticking the boiler in there and just seeing if it'll even start. It won't, so I took off about 10 thou that last pass. I'll do that again, I think. Okay, this is after taking several light cuts. You can see the wall is a good bit thinner. Haven't even measured it, but I can still see that we're getting very close. Just wanted to show this. A lot of times you read something about something, I'll say like when it just starts, and that's kind of what I would say this one. There's just almost starts there. It's not perfectly round, so at this point, my whole point is I'm taking off like 6 thou at a time each pass, and just sneaking up on it. That's all. And I'm using some lubricant on the cutter and, and some hearing protection, because copper is squeaky as all get out. Oh, another thing I do is I'm sanding with some sandpaper very carefully, just to smooth the edges before I do the test fit, because copper is very grabby and doesn't machine smooth. Little ridges form even as careful as you are, so it's a good idea to kind of smooth and deburr before test fitting each time. Okay, this is exciting. I just had to take a picture of it. After the last segment I filmed, I took 7.4 thou off, and the segment where I said it just starts, well, look at this, that just starts a little bit more. It doesn't go all the way home, so I need to take a little bit more off, but that's what I mean by getting close and just kind of sneaking up on it. You can see that kind of goes in about 1/8 of an inch. There you go, maybe 3/16. So we'll take off a little bit more, and that's what's good, is there's still plenty of material around the outside there, so we should be in good shape. I was kind of worried about that. I'll bring you back when it fits. This time I didn't clean off the tool yet. Thought I'd show. This is what I mean when you cut copper. I mean, it gets stringy, all that kind of stuff. Also, this is the completed opening, and I did, of course, touch it up with sandpaper and smooth the edge. Let me show you the fit here. Very, very happy that I snuck up on it like I did. So it goes in pretty easily, and then you have to just give it a little, well, I'm trying to film this give it a little push, and it goes in, and there is no wiggle, no slop, no nothing. I couldn't be happier about that. So it's getting kind of late here on Saturday night. I'm going to stop right here, and I need to think about how I can drill the holes, there's got to be at least three holes on the bottom, one for the snifter and one for the exhaust and the steam supply, and then one of course at the top for the chimney. The book talks about how to do that, but I'll have to come up with my own method since I'm not Curly Lawrence. I couldn't resist, after getting the perfect fit to the smoke box area, I couldn't resist doing a little mock-up. I wanted to see, how parallel the boiler is to the body there, the chassis, and it's coming out just like I hoped. And then I stuck the little chimney on and the safety cover, sand dome I guess it's supposed to look like. So the next thing will be to drill holes in the bottom of the smoke box to clear the steam inlet and the exhaust pipe, and then of course a hole in the top for the chimney, and one somewhere offset in the bottom for the snifter valve, and then we can fabricate the hatch there. Trying to figure out how to mark the smoke box for the holes that I got to drill. I drew a couple little pictures here. Hopefully they're fairly self-explanatory, and I'll video a little bit of the process, but there's another picture too, just measuring the layout. And the spoiler alert, I'm going to use the granite surface plate, a little V-block, and my height gauge because it makes an excellent scriber. And I think if I do it this way I can keep the smoke box stationary, and then you swivel the scriber around, do one side and then the other, and I'll have my top and bottom marked, and then lay the smoke box on its side, and then I can do the offsets for the steam inlet and the exhaust. Okay, I carefully checked my measurements, and I marked rear and front and top. This is where the smoke the chimney will go, and as you can see, I made myself a wide area because I don't know exactly where the center of that's going to be. But on the bottom, I marked the front part and the bottom, and also a couple scribe lines. These are a little harder to see, where the two tubes will be. Okay, nothing fancy here, except I did need to count down, and the magic number was 1 inch 559 thousandths. So counting backwards, this is 59. So anyway, it looks like I got it on center pretty well. I just came out here to lay this out tonight. I'll double check things in the morning, but here's what I did. I just laid it in position, and with my left hand I held the copper thing steady, and I just scribed a little line here, and I set the 0 at the top, of course. Then again, keeping everything completely stable, steady, then I came around and marked the other center line. So I should have a good top and bottom. This should be the top where the chimney goes, and the bottom where the two holes are. Hope that makes sense. Pretty happy with how the marking out came. So just to kind of make things permanent, I used my little spring-loaded marking gauge, little Starrett. This thing is nice, works great. So I did the bottom here and flip it over. You can see the top where the chimney will be. So I'll get ready to just drill that. The one thing I haven't marked is where the snifter valve will be. I'm not quite sure about that. This would be the ideal time to drill that hole. So maybe I'll lay that out. Decided the snifter, I looked at some pictures from the drawings, and I decided the snifter needed to be on this side, the left side facing the way I'm facing now. And obviously you can see it there. So I just mocked it up. I was trying to figure out a good placement for it. I think about 3/4 inches over from the center of the steam inlet pipe, and then back in between the two of them. I just mocked this up roughly with aluminum foil so I could kind of show. But see, there would be the snifter line is going to come from the steam header. There'll be another connection. The blower is going to come over here on this side, so you need a little extra space. It's on this side of the exhaust stack. and then the steam supply line comes around this way to connect to the steam to the cylinders. So I think that'll be satisfactory. So that the whole point of doing this is to figure out where the hole is going to be. If I can drill the hole in the bottom of the smoke box cylinder. Kind of a Rube Goldberg setup, but I'm thinking it might be helpful to somebody else who's facing the same issue. The question is how to make sure that the cylinder that you've carefully marked on the center line and laid out your spots is perfectly perpendicular to the center axis of your drill. So what I did was I put a bar here, and I used obviously a large C-clamp to clamp a sturdy bar to the side of the vise. I've got the part set all the way over as far as it can go, and then I zeroed out across here, measured over half the distance, in this case 1.559 thou, over to the center line, and lined up my indicator here. So now I should be good to go for drilling the holes. Okay, that setup worked really good. I got the bottom holes drilled for the exhaust and the steam supply lines, and also, as you can see, I used an end mill, sort of made a plunge cut for the hole, the 1/4 inch diameter hole for the snifter valve, because I knew if I used a drill that it would have a tendency to stray and kind of go off center. Speaking of drills, I wanted to point out another thing that worked out really well. This is copper, and it's recommended, lots of people say this, that when you're drilling materials like copper, brass, plastic, anything that can grab, to kind of blunt the edge of the drill. It's not focusing really well, but you can see that little shiny silver area. Let me take you over right next door here. I'll show you my setup. The Click Spring has an excellent video about doing this, using a whetstone you just rub the flat against it, and then see if I can get the focus. There we go. See that little shiny silver sliver on the edge? I've basically just taken some of the rake angle off of the drills that I used. So I'm going to do that for this whole set eventually, probably. And a great idea. Harbor Freight sells these complete sets. You can get them on sale for $10. So I've dedicated this one to brass, and each one that I've modified, I've put a little tick mark underneath. So I'm sure it won't take long before I have them all kind of flattened and dulled like that. Okay, Rube Goldberg part 2. So I flipped it over, got everything centered and oriented. I started drilling holes, and I realized I was going to have to drill a 5/8 inch diameter hole for the petticoat pipe that goes in there for the chimney. And rather than modifying a 5/8 inch diameter drill, I thought a smarter way might use a 5/8 inch end mill. So I just did. It just finally broke through. I don't know if you can see it there. Other thing is, obviously, I did leave the wood inside there for support, which I'm very glad I did, because I could see the metal move a little bit when I was clamping it, but I think it's fine, with that support inside. So I think I'm done. I'll take it out and let's see how it fits. Okay, folks, I could not be more pleased. Just tried a little test fit there with the smoke box. Everything aligns perfectly, even the little, nothing's holding that in there. I just set it in there. It's odd. It wants to roll over, but the hole is perpendicular, so it will stay in there when it's got a connection on top on the little snifter. I'm going to take that out for now because it's kind of annoying. But the setup is fine. The spacing looks good. And even one thing, I just wanted to make sure that my hole for the chimney is directly above the exhaust, and it is. So I think we are in good shape there. The next thing to do is going to be drilling holes that'll go through the sides here, so I can drill and tap into the bottom of the smoke box and fix it in place. So very excited about how that looks. I couldn't resist fitting the boiler on there and seeing what it looks like with a whole enchilada. The gentleman that sold me this set of parts called the large boiler a jumbo shrimp. It's kind of an apt description for it, but I'm very excited, as you can probably tell. That is cool. That all fits together really nicely. There's a little gap there, so oh well. And some screws to hold it steady. It's not critical, not a ceiling thing. The ceiling is around here. I'm pretty excited about that. After getting the smoke box to fit, the next thing I wanted to do was to lay out some evenly spaced holes here on either side of the bottom of the saddle and drill. So what I've done is drilled a number 43 clearance hole for a 256 screw, and I will obviously have to replace the smoke box in place and drill up this way. I may have to take this apart in order to drill through to the bottom of the smoke box, but I'm going to try to do it this way if I can, maybe even drilling by hand. But I was able to use my little Dremel tool. I do love the Dremel, handy for drilling, and glad I covered these things up. As you can see, it created quite a mess. I'll have to brush that off right now. Getting the little 256 screws put in place here. Just show you how I did it. I used my Dremel with the number 50 drill bit pulled way out so that I could come in with the best angle possible to drill these holes. And once that was done, then I tapped it. I'm using a little pin vise. Got the 256 tap and a pin vise. A little bit of tap paste on the end of it, and it rotates in pretty easily. So, and as soon as I put one in, I put a screw in after that just to hold it in place. So pretty happy with how that progress is. You can see how long they are. I haven't cut them off yet. This way, once I get all the screws in, I'll be able to mark each one with a Sharpie marker, pull them out, and cut them off to the appropriate length. And the next thing to do, and I think kind of the end of this little series, this week installment, will be to make a metal clip to hold the boiler in place now that I've got the screws in place up here. So what I'm doing is, the book calls for a 5/16 inch wide, and I did make a little paper template. Let me show you. Just looks, you know, if I'm going to make something like this, I might as well make something a little bit more substantial. So I don't know any reason why not to make a 1/2 inch wide one, so made up this little paper template, little cardboard. And I'm thinking something like this out of 1/16 inch steel. So see if I can bend that up and if it works well. For the steel, this is the material that I built the tender for my Allen Mogul out of, and these were some pieces that I used practice bends on. It's 1/16 inch, very thick and very sturdy, so yeah, you can see right there. So 16 gauge sheet metal. We'll make up a piece and see what it looks like. Before making any bends in these little tabs, I've obviously drilled the little holes where I'm going to use a number 3/48 screw. I have a bunch of little short ones that'll be perfect for this, I think. So I drill the holes first. Now I'll deburr and round off the tabs a little bit, and then I can bend them. The little tabs, this one is pretty much done. It's not pretty, but it's the right shape I was looking for. A little soft clamp over the top, a little bump out to accommodate the side piece, and then a hole in the center there that can be bolted into the frame. So this one I just wanted to show. I made the initial bend, that was simple. Then for this bend, what I'm using is a piece of 3/16 inch by 3/4 inch steel as a little bit of a directional hammer or specific hammer to get that one bend in. Now I just got to put the top bend in. But I wanted to show, just in case anybody was confused, that's what the clips look like. Bent out of a 1/16 inch steel, and the 3/48, little tiny 3/48. I used my Dremel again. First I center punched and used the center drill to make a starter hole. Used the Dremel again to drill the holes with some tap paste on it, and then a handheld 3/48 tap here. And these are the screws I'm using, these tiny little, this is why I went with a 3/48, because it's a good size, and I have a box full of these little 1/4 inch long ones. So it's just the right length to go through the tab and the frame, and not much else. It's not interfering inside there, which is a concern, you know, concerned you wouldn't want it jamming into the inside of the boiler. And when I was drilling the holes, I did cover everything up with a little piece of shop cloth, so I didn't want to get any debris inside the oil holes for the chassis. Not a huge thing, but pretty pleased how these things came out. It'll hold the boiler in place. I can't lift it up. It's not even held down with the screws in the front, but it does allow a little room for wiggle and expansion and so forth, which is the idea, because when things heat up, you know, the boiling water gets in there, it will definitely heat up, so, and expand, the boiler will expand. So pretty pleased how that came out. The next step, I think I'm going to take the boiler back off and remove this thing. Remember, it's still just crazy glued in there, and I may look at soft soldering these front tabs in place and then calling it a quits for tonight. That worked out really good. I tell you, I inherited this heat gun from my late father-in-law. It's a Milwaukee, and it sure kicks you know what. Did a fantastic job. I just used that and an X-Acto knife along the edges to loosen it up, and this came right out. So I'm going to let it cool off and clean off the crazy glue. And I believe I'm going to try to soft solder. Those screws should hold it in place. I can soft solder these tabs on, and then it'll be a much more solid construction there. Here's the cast saddle with the tabs screwed and soldered in. I'll put it all together here, screw it in place, and show you what that looks like. But the soft soldering was easy and made a nice, it's kind of hard to see in this dark, but made a nice joint. I put a wrench on them, I couldn't get those things to play. Alright folks, a little finishing shot here. I think this will wrap it up for this week. Thanks again for being part of the process. I look forward to updating you. Next things will be the smoke box door, and then of course the ash pan and the grate. So have a great week, everybody. Please pass the word, give me a thumbs up, ask any questions you might have. Appreciate you. Bye.